Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, the podcast where we delve into the world of CMS systems and their crucial role in website and web content development. In each episode, we'll explore the reasons why founders, CEOs, CTOs, and CMOs of web content development companies need CMS systems to thrive in the digital landscape. Get ready to uncover the secrets behind successful website management, content creation, and seamless user experiences. Here's your host, Jonathan Ames.
Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, a podcast by Butter CMS. Today we have a special panel episode where we're going to discuss with a panel of experts, SEO, paid search, and managing teams across border, what kind of fields you should have access to for your content teams in SEO, and other things that have not been determined at this point as we get into the conversation. First, let's go around. I'm going to introduce, we have Brian Gerstner, we have Stephen Falsing, we have Brandon Tancott. We'll have each of them go around and just do a quick introduction so you know who they are. Brian, you want to start us off?
Definitely. As I said, my name is Brian Gerstner, and I'm the president of White Label IQ. We're a design and development agency in paid media, and we work primarily with agencies, where we're the unseen backbone, powering and providing a lot of specialized skill sets and bandwidth to agencies as they go to market direct to client. From there, we're a team of 85 people and growing across Colombia, India, and the US.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Brandon, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm Brandon Tancott, founder and director of Webstreet Digital, African-based South African startup. Also got connections in agencies that we work with in the UK and the US. Predominantly do builds, a lot of SEO, content work, strategy, and focused a lot on cross-border. Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you, Brandon. Stephen.
Hey, I'm Stephen Falsing, founder and managing director of Bonfire. We are a web design and web development agency focused at middle market companies, state municipal governments, nonprofits, and funded startups.
Excellent. So these guys have been out there working. They have the stories. I'm really excited about how they talk about this integration first between paid search and organic. So I'll kick it off here. What is the synergies between these two often separated performance media?
When I lead into it with people and I start to client, there's a lot of technical synergies, but from a business perspective, it's a lot about audience. When you go in, SEO is great. It's a long game though. Walking in, paid media is going to give you access to audiences you're not going to get out the gate. And any kind of money you spend in the background, the last thing you'd want to do is throw it away. So a lot of the times when we walk out the gate, the synergy is basically has to do with business investment up front. How much money are we going to put out to buy access to other people's audiences? And how do we transition that budget into more long-term objectives where we're really building equity into the brand?
Excellent.
Yeah, I think also looking at your keyword integration. So obviously the synergies there is focused on, like you rightfully said, Brian, it's a long tail strategy on SEO. You want to make sure that you're investing into the long term, but you also want to make sure that you're doing it correctly. You don't want to turn around 6 months later and realize that you've picked the wrong phrases, wrong words. And the best way to obviously get that information is to pay for it, get the information, pay, run ads, and make sure that your organic and your paid are not opposing forces, but they're actually complementing each other. So the one information that you pay for on the one channel actually feeds into the other channel's organic reach and marketing.
Absolutely. What both these guys are saying is SEO it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it's constantly changing in the landscape with the way that Google is basically putting a lot of different things in place to keep people in the Google ecosystem. So you can either fight that or you can lean into it. 60% of Google searches are ending without a click these days due to the zero-click strategy. So the question comes around how can you utilize the authentic content, hopefully you're creating on your site, and the SERP tools to get that content pushed forward into Google's ecosystem so that your users are getting the information they need and hopefully landing where you want them to land. But really the thing this all ladders up to is what are your goals? The different, obviously a lot of stuff is going to be conversion driven, right? I want someone to click and buy, which is an oversimplified but true statement. That said, there's a lot of other things, some of the work that we're doing for state municipal governments or for transit systems that are around, one of my least favorite words in advertising, but a true one is awareness, whether it's about an opioid intervention program or a new bus line that goes to the stadium. It's about making sure people that are aware of it and going to utilize it, but it's not necessarily turning into a quote unquote click conversion online. And so that's about disseminating information in a broad way, but also to very key demographics, right? The demographics for that are going to be different than just everybody all the time. And so that speaks into both organic, but even more so, that's where it leads into paid and really choosing correct keywords, phrases, and thinking like amazing. We've worked in technology, so much of us for decades. We have to think like real humans. What's someone actually going to type into a search? And with the rise of AI, people are getting more and more into natural language interaction with their search engines. They're speaking to it like you used to speak to the computer on Star Trek, where you go, computer, tell me how to get to the stadium. And that's how people are searching more and more. And the SEM and SEO strategies need to play into real humans. It's always been about putting the user first since I've been doing this since the mid-90s. In my opinion, it's always been about the human, not the technology. But the technology drives so much, but you have to be able to marry the two together.
In talking about like Google and the human experience and AI, of course, Google's laying out generative responses at the very top of the page now. I'm looking at this and I'm talking to a lot of people. Depending upon the market, if you have a market where advertising is important, like the timing, period to making a decision quickly, then Google is absolutely still a lot of a place you need to be. But when we're talking to other brands where it is more branding, it's not specifically about advertising necessarily. That awareness, we're pushing them into social. The social platforms are search engines at the core of it here. And in there, there's a lot more ability, just as you said, with people to engage with people, how they're searching, how they're finding. Because we're finding people are going on to social, they're following and liking influencers, and it's a form of search. It's a form of intent. So when they want to find something, I feel they're not necessarily going to Google anymore. They're going to Gemini, or they're going on to their favorite influencer to figure out what they like. So the whole nature of search is shifting. And honestly, it's got a lot of our people scared, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point.
What you brought up a very good point there. I think we did get obsessed with intent-based marketing, behavioral-based marketing, very granular in terms of our metrics and understanding how we go through these steps as marketers. And AI has kind of superseded all of those things for us and allowed us to replicate all those human functions a lot faster, which means what is the feelings that the human is left with, like you said, Stephen. So, and interestingly enough, I like to get into the meaning of words. Content is also how you hold things together in a container, but it's also another meaning of how content is a person. It's a state of satisfaction. So how satisfied is the user with the message that you're speaking, and what are you creating in the context? So for me, I think SEO is going to become extremely contextual, not just intent-based driven. And moving from behaviors, it's going to get more into the user's inner core values, like what drives them to do what they do before they do what they do, to then go on and have the intention to make the click to get onto your ad. So you've got to work your way back in terms of the psychology. So I think we're becoming less SEO experts and more psychologists the older I get, but that's the way of it.
Well, Brandon, you're even playing into, as you talk about that container and the experience, the recent helpful update out of Google, big part of that is they're not looking at pages, they're looking at the entire site and the validity of the site. So the experience of the site, the focus of the content, the container, once again. What is your experience coming out of the site as a whole? I think you nailed it right there.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, do keywords still matter based on this? I mean, we're getting really big here with the feelings of things, the entire container of your site.
But Jonathan, I'll answer that question in the best way I know how, because I love absolute questions. The answer is, it depends, because there are no absolutes, right? Yeah, it's not a binary world we're living in, let alone a binary marketplace. So do they matter? The short answer is sure. It all matters, but there's no one silver bullet. We run into so many clients that have been sold snake oil. SEO is going to save your business. All you need to do is this one magic trick. It's like they're trying to lose weight. And we got to be smarter than that. We are smarter than that. We just all are humans. We fall into the easy answers. There's no easy answer. Yes, you've got to have an authentic strategy at its core, an authentic product, an authentic company that is doing something that you believe is valuable in the marketplace. Not to get too esoteric. And then that starts there. And then everything builds on top of that, which includes your SEO strategy. What keywords are you using? It's like if you're trying to use keywords to trick people to land on your site, you're doing it wrong. Just at its core, you're doing it wrong. What are the keywords that matter to your audience? They're trying to solve some sort of problem. Maybe that problem is what soda to put in a cup with ice when they're having a cheeseburger. It doesn't have to, not everything's saving the world here, but what is it that they're trying to solve? How can you effectively speak to them in a way that's authentic? And there's an SEO and an SEM and a paid media and a content and a product strategy and a branding strategy. There's not one thing like, oh, if we just could fix our SEO, we'd all be billionaires, right? It's not that simple. But that's not a popular answer, but that's my answer.
No, I love it because it's a business problem in that sense. Where like, if you're trying to be everything to anyone, you have a business problem. Particularly nowadays where you really have to demonstrate an authority to be known and found. Yeah, I like to say you can't find an audience small enough to market to. And the beauty about it is then you know how to talk to them, you can understand them, you know how they search, right? So there is that fact that just there's no silver bullet. And focusing and simplicity is hard. It's the hardest thing ever.
It comes down to that old adage. I really like what you're saying there, Brian. It's like, is the glass half empty or is it half full? Well, our world has changed so much now that it depends on the context. Are you walking through the desert or are you close to a waterfall? If you're in the desert, the glass half empty is going to be a big problem. If you're close to a waterfall, glass half full is really no issue. So I think you got to get into your client's world and you really understand. And this is coming back down to traditional marketing, which I really love, the psychology and behavioral elements of it, how that ties into the words that people use when they speak versus how they type. That's another dynamic. We're seeing more and more people speak very differently to how they type. And we type differently in terms of our search queries than we do on a chat GPT in our prompts. So people's language biases are changing. So our keyword integration and how we search for those keywords also has to change as SEO experts. So that's another whole dynamic that I haven't quite conquered yet, but I think it's going to see how we transform the context of our content more and more to be more relevant. And also I think our language is going to be a little bit more simple, should I say, as if you were talking to someone.
I think it's interesting for a lot of listeners may be familiar with a keyword research tool like SEMrush. And they actually have a button where you can click so you can filter all the keywords by those that they consider questions. But in reality, every keyword search is a question. Even if it's just a one word, it's still a question. They're trying to discover something. You don't ever go on to make a statement and do a search on Google. You do it because you have a question. The idea here you're talking about, I'm hearing, is listen to the experience of the customer, focus in on a small area where you can be most relevant. This is where I feel like paid search, which is where I got my start, was in paid search, is best at helping because you can really go in to particular keywords and say, all right, what is the reaction to this keyword and this piece of content, that keyword, this piece of content? And that's where the psychology comes in because you're really playing a game as an advertiser where you're trying to say, I think that when you say this keyword, you mean this content. And how closely do those two match up? And you find it by your click-through rates and your conversion rates. And that should hopefully inform you in SEO to what to go after there. But do you feel like there's another effect on search that paid search has?
As you're talking about the keywords and kind of getting in front of the right audience, it's advertising, right? We're not talking about marketing as a whole. We're talking about advertising. And I think that's great to be able to answer someone's problem, to be able to be present if you're understanding that problem or having a product in front of it. But it has to be real timely at that point. Because if you're going to convert them and you're looking for a conversion to happen quickly, home services is a great area. I need to get my garage doors fixed. The first person I find, the first person that responds to me in a timely way, I'm going to give them my money because I want that problem gone, okay? Got more important things going on. When we get into other contexts and people are asking questions, there is that I'm asking a question because I have a longer term problem. I'm trying to understand things. Then you want to be present. You want to be present across multiple questions, multiple terms, multiple phrases that encompass an entourage of what's going on there. As that, this all ties together. Once again, the context of your site. Are you leading people into a place where you can provide information that is holistic about a solution? Because then you're really speaking to people. You're really demonstrating that you understand them, once again. The key word is we're just getting awareness, as you said, attention. And then we're staying present and we're understanding what that journey's like. Can we let the people know that we understand that? Because once you get past paid ads, it's all about the brand. It's all about the content.
It's interesting that you say that because it's almost like we projecting, if you imagine these two networks, we've got a network of keywords that we create within our projects and within our scope. And then there's a network of keywords that are drifting around in the client's mind before they hit the search engine. And those two neural networks of keywords and phrases, ideas, and concepts need to meet in the middle. There needs to be internet. There we go. There's the word, the internet, the joining of the two concepts of those two words. Yeah, it's interesting how that's playing out more and more as people are getting onto mobile, voice search. I think these are other elements that are affecting the keywords people use. It's not just how they type, but what would they say if they had to use a voice search or image search? I know is another one. But again, it comes down to what you were saying, Brian, at its core. Is the right content at the right context at the right place? So if I've got a geyser burst, I need someone there today. I don't need to answer those 10 questions versus somewhere else where I'm dealing with a technical product. I may need those 10 questions answered before I can and make that purchase intent clear.
Let me ask another question. How do these two things, paid search and SEO, affect branded search? So the idea is, you talked about not just trying to answer a question, but trying to also create awareness out there. That's your branded terms. Where do branded terms fit between SEO and paid?
When you say branded terms, you mean people searching on actual brand names and terms like that in the marketplace?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
absolutely.
I think from our perspective, very rarely, if ever, do we put paid search behind branded names unless we're conquesting. We'll conquest over a competitor, but not obviously on your own brand. On the SEO side, you want to lean heavily into it. And so that should all be kind of part and parcel of your content strategy. That said, it depends again. It'd be my favorite answer. It depends. What you're trying to conquest, how much you're willing to pay for it. And it's sometimes if someone's looking for a competitor brand, they're looking for it, right? And the user base is smart enough to find them. Now, maybe if they're in a consideration path, they will consider a competitor brand, a challenger brand. It's a valuable strategy, but it's with all this sort of stuff, it's none of this is set it and forget it. It's constantly optimizing, constantly looking at the data, finding ways to visualize the data so you can quickly make decisions based on it, and then making those decisions and following the pathway to the right solutions. And you can try stuff. We optimize constantly when we're doing paid search and social. And what we have an idea, and sometimes the users tell us we're right, sometimes they tell us we're wrong, and that's okay. And we adjust and optimize and push the needles in the right direction. That's all you can constantly do. And that's from a branding perspective, it's the same thing. And there's a lot of other ways to create brand value around brand names and brand ideas without being too esoteric.
To kind of contribute as you talk about Conquest too and the tie between paid advertising and branding, here's the deal, like ChatGPT is the baseline now. Okay. So if you want to be average, pull it out of ChatGPT. So when you're doing a conquest or you're getting people to get from that awareness down to interest and desire, you've got to add content that comes from your own experience now. You've got to add content that is truly like, here's what we understand you, and here's what we understand about you. Here are the solutions. Here's our experiences. Like, you can't just be regurgitating things anymore. The mediocrity is getting beaten out of us, okay? And good to great means you're contributing real world experiences to the situation, just like this podcast, okay? This is authentic content that's coming out, which is a much higher value than some sort of generic article. When you go to conquest brands and how you're tying search, you're getting awareness, you're paid, and you get to those conquest brands, you are delivering something that your competitor isn't. You're a more authentic, a more experience-driven content that's going to be more holistic and engage people. It's classic funnel.
Yeah, it's connecting those dots that only you can connect through pain. As far as I know, a computer can't feel pain the way a human can. And those pains is what drives our decision-making. And a lot of those pains is what we use in our marketing to drive the benefits of our products that we sell. So by connecting those dots and adding the human level of experience to AI, I agree, just using ChatGPT out of the box is really mediocre. But as a research tool, as a way to generate ideas quick, fantastic. But you've got to layer in the human experience, 100%.
Yeah. Jonathan, remember end of last year, which is almost a year ago now, how time flies, when we were at LavaCon and we were speaking about SEO strategy, and so much of what was being talked about there was AI-generated content. And when we're talking about SEO, my warning at the time was, look, AI is going to make it a lot easier and has already made it a lot easier. This was October last year. It's funny how it's like we've exponentially grown even since then. But AI is going to make it a lot easier to create a large amount of homogenized content. And that is going to happen. The noise level is going to increase drastically. And so you need to raise your level with the noise, but also understand that you are going to be so much more diluted. And so if you really want to break through, you're going to have to find ways to create authentic, valuable, unique content and connect with people, because everyone else has the same tool you do to create your content using AI. So it's you and 1,000 or probably 1,000,000 other people. How are you breaking through that noise?
But not everyone has your unique voice, face, and personality. So I think being on podcasts and presenting yourself, I think gives a massive edge over any ChatGPT. Sorry for the interruptions there.
No worries. This may get edited out, but it reminds me of the scene, and there's a movie, Monty Python movie, Life of Brian, where he's speaking to this large group of people. And he's, no, you're all different. They're like, yes, all together. We're all different. All at the same time. And then one guy's like, but I'm not. And they're like, you need to be that one person. He's like, I'm not different. You're singular and you're separating yourself. And how do you do that? It feels like that. Like the noise has risen to how awesome and unique all of us are. You got to cut through.
No, I completely agree with you.
The new saying is make mistakes and don't forget to share them. That's what I'm thinking about.
I think we're doing that right now.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think it's ironic. Like when you look at AI comes out, we're all behind our computers. There's the pan through Zoom. So we're not authentically connecting in person. Be it AI to actually bring us together where we actually have to talk to one another, share experiences. And even from that, when you get into paid social, like all of the things driving ROI right now are these short form content. They're short, they're digestible, they're video, which has an emotional component that other things don't. I have an assumption that I'm trying to test where like part of the drive and why there's so much ROI is coming from that is like people are starving for a little more interaction than they're used to getting. AI has now created a baseline, so we have to get in front of people. We have to create more authentic content that's not polished, that people are starving for it. AI is just exacerbating the issue. And emotionally, that's how we make decisions. So that's where all the ad money and return on investment is going.
I think the key here, all of you are saying, is we need to create this authentic and differentiated content to rise above the noise that's generated by AI's kind of mediocrity and regurgitation. How do we do that, both for SEO and paid search? Give some stories maybe where you've seen some authentic and differentiated content created. We talked about this podcast as one, so a podcast certainly can be that. Where's some other stories, really good, authentic, differentiated content you've seen produced?
Yeah, for us, it's been sponsorships. It's been influencers. Like we are working with influencers within our market who are generating that content. And the influencer campaigning, I mean, it's on fire. People are gravitating toward for all those reasons. So we're looking at like peer networks. We're looking at conferences. We're going back to those types of places where people are getting on stage, people are providing analysis, people are sponsoring podcasts. We're going to like all those places where people exist now. Content, blog articles, don't get me wrong, there's an absolute place for them. We produce them and distribute them like crazy, but like our return on investment is coming with people. Conferences, podcasts, influencers, social media influencer markets. That's where we're going. Original research where we're actually surveying people.
Yeah, I was going to add to that exactly that, Brian. I think a lot of our B2B experience now, what's working really well for us is surveying and also getting in front of people with those surveys and creating research hubs or research experiences where you're taking that information and translating it to specific key role players that can add to the conversation. And then taking those conversations, contextualizing them and sharing them live. The example that I'm talking about is in the sectional title industry where you've got lots of different professionals who all have an opinion. Some of them are lawyers, some of them are property managers, some of them are the owners, trustees, managing agents, all different stakeholders, different opinions, all generating content on their own rights within their own blogs. But how do you take that, contextualize it into a centralized research hub that benefits all of them, but allows the non-lawyer to learn something about the lawyer? And of course, we've baked AI into that, but more as a research. So I think That's what we're working on and have been focused on a lot. And then obviously that works very well for SEO because you're garnering all these links and you're creating all these networks of links between content within a specific sector. So that's what we've been focusing on.
No, I find it like, if you look at like a theme of what we're talking about here, I often think about like Steve Jobs. There was one of the quotes, I'm not going to phrase it well, where he talks about you have to lead with the experience. I've made this mistake so much time. You lead with the customer experience, the technology will follow. And when you look at like paid media and social for so long, it's been about the technical application, the ability that I can optimize it or understand it better than you could before. But that's kind of out the window. The people have gotten in front of it. The experience is leading and the tech is following.
It's that deep experience now, Brian, that people are looking for, that deep engagement.
Yeah.
What about user-generated?
When you talk about deep, it's that authentic, right? So deep means
That's
authentic. You got some sort of high-paid CMO polishing a script, puts it out, gets 10 likes. Somebody, once again, puppies and ice cream, 5 million likes.
I'm going to tell a story real quick. I've worked in creating content on videos for mainly B2B audiences for 20 years. And when you put out a B2B focused video, if you get a couple thousand views, you're feeling like this is pretty good content and people are liking it. It's authentic. It's working out there. My daughter, who's 10 years old, went on YouTube, created an account, posted a couple of shorts of her pugs, and within the first day had 20,000 views. The first day. So this is where this user-generated content comes in. Marketers, it's a love-hate relationship, but this is authentic content, but it's kind of like a wild animal that you're not sure. Is user-generated content any good for SEO or paid? Is that something like wild you got to keep in social?
Jonathan, I would counterpoint that, and nothing against your daughter or her pugs. What's the value of those 20,000 likes, views? There's a value in terms of if you're trying to become a content creator on YouTube. If that's a goal, because we're talking about business and monetization. I assume your 10-year-old isn't really focused on monetization, but maybe you should get her on that because then college will take care of itself. But that's the point, is in disposable nature of a like or a view. You can buy them. Like what? It doesn't matter. You can get 1 million views on a B2B video, but if they're all by people who are not in your target market and don't care, it doesn't matter. It's a number you can show to your boss. Look, 1 million people watch this. Who cares? What's the ROI? And the metrics, I think we've learned a lot about that in the last 5 or so years in social. But I remember used to be driving likes was a thing. And I'm like, you want likes? I can buy you likes out of Bangladesh. That's not what we're going to do, because no one effing care. I get juiced up about this, so I apologize. But like, what matters? 10 good ones are better than 1 million bad ones. So how do you focus on that? Is the content, did they watch it because it's funny, but it doesn't make them want to buy your product? My background was at ad agencies. They all wanted to make something go viral. I think the fact you want to make it go viral, you're doing the wrong thing. Create something of quality, something interesting, sure, something funny. If you're trying to sell me tax services, especially business tax services, is it funny the way to go? I don't know. I might like watch the video and laugh, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to hire them to do my taxes. And these are questions that can be answered with research, can be answered like talking to real humans, not sitting in a room guessing. It's about, like, we keep going back to authenticity in a way that's encouraging, because I think those of us that want to do this the right way keep going back to that. And it's not like, oh gosh, if only you could get 1 million views, all your problems would be solved. Or if only this or only that, or use a puppy. You know what? Be authentic, create what is going to resonate with your users. Like I said, we're doing social, paid search for an opioid and fentanyl outreach campaign to try to get critical information to residents of a specific region to save their lives. There's nothing funny about that. Quite frankly, I don't know how many views I want for that. What I want is for this to get to the right people that need it to help save lives. So I don't care how many people view it. Obviously, we're providing a lot of detail and data back to the municipality about it. Ultimately, what I care about is the metric of opioid deaths going down. That's all I care about in that campaign. That's perhaps a little bleak in the story, but that is what it's about. And I'm not trying to impress anybody with our numbers or our ROI. Let's make differences. Let's change things. And that can be a change around, wow, we've pushed up top line revenue 3% with this campaign. That's valuable. That's what it's about.
Yes, it's about taking educated risks. So yes, the internet does reward creativity, and it rewards the cat flying off the chair and landing on the lamp. And those likes mean the value of those likes has deteriorated over time. But what is the value that you carry? You know, when you were saying that, I was like, can we bottle and measure the laughs? Can you bottle and measure the pain and the tears? Because that's what it really comes down to. And that's a hard metric to drive or to measure. But that's exactly what you were saying. It's really cool.
It is. And those are unique types of projects. That one specifically, it's also one of those things that I would be perfectly happy if we never did another one. I would love to make ourselves obsolete in that line of business. Highly unlikely due to human nature, but with all of our marketing clients, I'd love for us to keep going forever and ever. I'm like, I hope I never do another opioid campaign. But if we need the help, we're there.
Absolutely. And some of that too, like I guess where we're putting our money and our strategy is basically an authority position. As we're talking about all this, just to be able to niche down further, being an authority in that position. So just kind of worth hypothetical theory is if we're focused on providing the greatest content ever, to some degree, I wish it was the opposite. Why are we trying to optimize ourselves for the search engine? Shouldn't the search engine be trying just to find us?
If you have really great content, yeah.
I know, that's a wish, right? If we're truly, really trying to connect, like their job is to find us. It's not, our job is to connect to the end client. That doesn't necessarily drive metrics and return on investment, but it just kind of aggravates in the same way that you're talking about. You want to provide great information for people in opioid crisis. So there is some moral obligation for the search engines to find you, to connect. If you're producing the right information, that's in a perfect world. So sorry.
Let me know when you got that perfect world together. I'll move there.
So my last question was user-generated content and kind of the value there. So let's go in the opposite direction. You bring up a good point, maybe that you get a lot of likes, you get a lot of views, but it's not a lot of business value. When we went, Stephen, to LavaCon this last year, we met with hundreds of people who just work all day on documentation. They create content that should have great value, but nobody ever works on trying to optimize, it seems, for the search engine's content. But you have this huge repository of stuff that should be exact business value stuff, answers to questions. Why is that? Is there a way to do that? To create things like documentation and turn it into really good content that can rank, or that you could even, dare I say, send a paid ad to?
Potentially. I think, again, it comes down to purpose. And for something specifically like that around the technical writers and the technical content that's being created there, it's valuable content. It's voluminous too. There's just so much of it, it seemed. And it's very specific. And that's where you can be very targeted. And I think for companies like that, that were in those sorts of the fields, it was in a very highly technical fields down there, semiconductor manufacturers, things like that. I think for them, it can be a key differentiator for them. I think in a technical marketplace, the value of your documentation shows authority, expertise, things like that. It shows how well you support your products. So I think there are ways to do that and leverage that. I think some of those, like there's the intrinsic technical content management systems are not focused on external. That's one thing that was fascinating to be there, how they were very internally focused. And so part of that might be for lack of a better word, culture shift, where how do we show the value? A lot of what they're talking about down there was like how showing the value of their work, even internally, selling it to internal stakeholders, let alone external stakeholders. So part of it's a culture shift.
Now, to kind of play off at that, and this is just kind of a sequence, I'll bring it, as you talk about all the massive amounts of content we're creating, I think there's a chain that leads to the value there. And a lot of it is, even as we're talking about authority, authenticity, people are still trying to search. How are people going to get their answers? What I do know is a lot of the clients we're working with in the tech space, okay, in the IT areas, there's a marketing problem because all the money is being diverged to data farms, okay? Building massive amounts of content as you're talking, even all these people writing these contents. Because large language models don't work without tremendous amounts of content. So a lot of what we're seeing is like people are training their own language models, okay? The paid advertising is going to lead someone to someone who has a language model that they've trained that's answering questions better than the other person. And all that voluminous content is going to be worth it because that's what we're using to train AI. Even on ourselves, we have diverted a lot of money to fixing our knowledge base, getting all of our content, all of our processes so that we internally serve our people internally and that we can start turning that outward. What I want to do is I want to get that client facing as fast as I can, but I can't yet. And then I got to get awareness so people know that I'm sharing this in the most efficient way possible and I'm serving them, adding value. Once again, paid media, SEO, that all ties together because I got to get awareness. I've got to get people to that place where with SEO, they're finding and I'm answering their questions and the whole authenticity thing. But I think it's just the chain isn't what we're used to. The chain is much faster now, whereas the chain is like we've got to invest in other areas at this point or we're going to fall behind. So paid media SEO, it's not going to be what it looks like today. We're going to look back and this is going to look like stick shift automobile, which some people still love. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
It doesn't compare to a Tesla.
Yes. Excellent.
We're not even going to recognize the landscape of today, tomorrow.
And I think it is. More industries are generating more content, especially in B2B spaces than ever before. You mentioned conduits, solar, you've got piping, you've got all these different elements and more professionals are coming in and they're getting more technical. It used to be that you would put a geyser in and it would be okay, but now you've got geysers that have AI robots linked to an IoT system. That's pretty complex stuff. And it touches on multiple areas of what people need. User manuals, help files, all these things are valuable content in that context. But I think we're going to also start seeing more peer review, like you would in the medical or in the law fraternity, where you see case reviews, case studies coming into other business-to-business areas, and how do people contextualize that and put it together. So headless CMSs, I still think that's how you're going to bring a lot of that content together, because it is all sitting in different places, but it now needs to be contextualized. I always say, if you take someone's blog and you just print it as if you were printing a book, and you flip through it, does it make sense? Most people's blogs don't make sense if you had to print it out just like a book and read it. It's all over the show. That's what a little bit of editing, I think, needs to happen almost in terms of a bigger picture of what you're putting out and a lot more curation of content in the business-to-business space.
And that's what we've been doing. Instead of producing new content, we're going back and curating everything we've already done.
Yep. Awesome.
I'll give you a good example. I'm going to tell you a story. I was one day trying to figure out how to do something in a video editor. And so, of course, I go to Google, start searching around, and I actually landed on this company's documentation page where they explain how to do this thing I was looking to do. And I was so impressed with the documentation because it was not dry. I mean, this is a very technical thing, but they made it fun. And they showed you exactly, here's where it is. They had videos, they had text in there. And I was so impressed with that. I went and bought their software afterwards. I was like, great, I want to use this instead of what I was using before. And so those are the opportunities, I think, with search and paid and great unique content. I think the content is already there. Like you guys say, it's whether it's the user-generated content or it's the going back and looking at your documentation or your existing content and curating that, helping people find it. Whoever did that documentation page, did some SEO on it because it did show up in the rankings and I was able to find it on the first page. And it wasn't a marketing or a sales page, but it worked like that for me. So yeah, great story of how good, authentic, unique content really, it sold me. And you didn't need a CTA in there. Gentlemen, this has been a great conversation. I know I've kept you going.
No, it's been pretty cool, this conversation. Yeah.
I didn't even get to the other topics.
No, but it's pretty wild. We've been talking about paid media, but it's all leading to all these people. Like we're talking about, I guess one of the threads I hear about this is like search engine and paid media. It's still about the people, right? I don't know.
It always has been, and it always will be, because otherwise it's robots talking to robots. Technology for its own sake is useless. What human problems are we solving? And that's a very broad statement, but ultimately that's always got to be the question. And every time I've seen something go astray, it's because they start thinking about something else besides the user, besides the customer, besides the human that they want to interact with. And laser focused on that is the key strategy in anything. It's just hard to maintain because there's a lot of slings and arrows of outrageous fortune going around. So, and a lot of shiny objects that are distracting.
We started out on SEO and we got into UX. So I don't know how it all happened, but that all does tie together. Thank you, gentlemen, for bringing your experiences, your insights Some great stuff in here. I only wish we're going to have to do this again because we didn't get to any of the other subjects. So
Right.
thank you so much for your time.
We do the sequel.
Thank you very much.
Oh, one last thing. I would like anyone who'd like to connect with you to know where to find you online. So could you just each, Brian, start with you and then Brandon and Stephen, where can people find you?
whitelabeliq.com is our website. We produce a lot of content. I'd like, find us on Meta.
Awesome. You can catch me on LinkedIn, Brandon Tancott. You can just search me on LinkedIn. Also, email brandon@tancott.com. Probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. Or you can go check out the agency site, webstreet.digital. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Thanks, Brandon.
Excellent. Our website is bonfirela.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Stephen with a PH, Falsing. Pretty easy to find. I think I'm the only one on there. So, yeah, I'll always love connecting with people.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Great episode.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Keep well.
Cutting Edge Web Content Development is brought to you by Butter CMS. To find out how you can build better with Butter, stop wasting dev time, and free your marketers from your legacy CMS, visit buttercms.com. Also, make sure to search for Cutting Edge Web Content Development in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Butter CMS, thank you for listening.